Hi, I just thought I'd do a quick feed on the subject of crawling. So I'm not taking questions, I just wanted to have a chat to you about babies and crawling and something which is very interesting. I've been looking into lately why we used to crawl when we were babies at a certain age and why our babies seem to be crawling later, and it's a really, really interesting subject. So when we were little, so I grew up in Ireland and I grew up in a household where there were lots of children, but some of my friends grew up in Ireland in households where there were 16 children. But for example, in my household where I grew up, so when I was, 40 years ago, or 42 years ago when I was a baby, my mum would have had me and my older siblings. And she would have had to put me down on the floor when she went off and washed the dishes and hung the washing out and maybe hand washed the nappies and hand washed bottles and food and whatever else, and she didn't have the added luxuries back when I was a baby of having a dishwasher, a washing machine, a tumble dryer and so on. And what was really interesting is when you look at babies way back when we were little, we did things differently. So our parents used to lie us on the floor, and we used to lie on the floor and play with a couple of toys near us. And I had a sister who was, I suppose she would have been about 20 months older than me, and I can just picture it. She would have come over and taken the toy away from me that I was playing with, and then I would have had to try and get the toy off her. So I might have had a toy, she might have come over and taken the toy and moved away, and then she might have put the toy down somewhere else, and then I would have to try and get to that toy if I wanted the toy back, so I would have to try and move. So it used to be that, we lived differently. So my mum would be off doing stuff. She wasn't sitting there. Now with children, we'll often have a toddler and a baby, and we don't really leave them by themselves. So if the toddler came along and took the toy off the baby, we're more likely to say, let's say the children are called Jack and Sam, Jack, give Sam back the rattle. Don't take the rattle off Jack. Give Jack back the rattle. So we interfere with how our babies are learning. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. I'm saying it's interesting. So in the when I was young, I would have lay on the floor, and then I would have rolled, and then I would have tried to move, and then I would have crawled to get the toy, and then you would go from crawling and you would push your hands up to sitting. So you would go lying, rolling, crawling, sitting. Then you would start cruising the furniture, and then you would start walking. Crawling has changed. If you look at the average age of a crawling child 40 years ago to the average age of a crawling child, it has changed. Now, what's really interesting is, I think one of the reasons it's changed is we sit them. So we now sit children in baby walkers. We did have baby walkers when I was little, but you should see them. They're very odd. They were just like a V-shaped thing with a seat in it. But we now sit our babies. We sit our babies up in baby seats. We sit our babies in high chairs. We sit our babies up with cushions around them, and we sit with our babies. I think it's changed. So now babies tend to lie, roll, sit, because we sit them up, and then they crawl after they've learned to sit, then they cruise, and then we walk. But it's done much, much later. And I always find that a really fascinating, interesting subject about how time has changed from when we were little till now. So if you've got a baby who's not crawling, don't worry. It's not because they're much more delayed than what you were. It's just that we've changed. We've changed how we parent. Also, what's really interesting is, second children used to do really, really well in life because they had the first child who would come along and take the toys and stuff off them, and they had to learn how to sort of defend themselves, how to get the toys and so on. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Have we changed for the better or have we changed for the worse? Back years and years ago, people were a lot more time poor. They didn't have internet banking, they didn't have online shopping. I mean, we complain that we don't have enough hours in the day, but imagine what it was like for them. But also, mums and dads didn't both work. Normally somebody was at home all the time. Not that that's easy. You would have been at home, you would have preferred to work, especially when you didn't have dishwashers and washing machines and tumble dryers and so on. Anyway, I just thought it was a very interesting subject, which I'm looking at the moment, and I thought I would share it with you. It is very interesting. With my children, I decided to try not to sit them up and to try not to prop them up in pillows and so on. But because I think my children were prem and also larger babies, they still took a while to walk. They did crawl at a reasonable age, but they took a while to walk. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I thought it was an interesting topic to touch base on, and I will be taking questions at some point later in the week. Thanks. Bye.